I just thought I'd try to put some thoughts about some things onto the internet before midnight. The first of those things is Space Jam: A New Legacy, and a lot of the movie opinion people that I watch on YouTube uh, have often said that most people would say that they have very fond memories and really love the original Space Jam, but the individuals I'm watching would say they are the opposite of that, and they are the exception to that rule. And so, as far as videos about the new Space Jam movie go, I'm going to say that I'm probably going to be the exception to that because I really like the movie, and to confirm that, I watched it today right before watching the new one. And I can see, in retrospect and through listening to the other criticisms that it has its flaws. I still have a lot of fun with it and feel like it makes enough sense for what it is, which is a movie for me, not now, but way back 25 years ago when I was 10. So that's where I came into this, and I try not to prejudge the new movie, whether from a ruining my childhood perspective by rebooting or bringing back something that I loved as a child, or from a uh, just sequel fatigue perspective. So I went in hoping to have a good time, and and even despite having heard some not quite great things and not having been particularly thrilled by the trailers, but I still wanted to give it uh, a, 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 a shot. And I was not a fan of it, not nearly as much as I am of the original. Um, it has its very high points, especially toward the end when, of course, there's a big finale at the end of a movie like this, and that's when the Looney Tunes are at their looniest, and that's why you see Space Jam, and that's why the first Space Jam is, I think, better. Um, but for the most part, like right from not from the very beginning, but from the pretty much from the moment that we first get when LeBron James as himself, not the kid version at the very beginning of the movie, but the LeBron James steps onto the screen, and it's not that I don't like him, it's just that with the first one, it was whether or not Michael Jordan can be said to be acting in that movie, it is pretty much Michael Jordan as I would expect that he was at the time. He's playing himself. And LeBron, right from the very beginning, I just kind of playing like a stern disciplinarian father, and my first verbal reaction to the movie, to the malevolent supernatural force I live with, was, I don't want to believe that LeBron is that person, that King James is this unpleasant person. So he is actually, I think, being asked to play a character here, and I think that is not what they should have done. Not again, not because he can't act. I'm not talking about his acting. I'm just talking about the pleasure of the first one was seeing Michael Jordan pretty much being Michael Jordan, reacting to Looney Tunes, and uh, and he's got the movie is about his foray into baseball and his return to basketball, and but in and he has conflicting feelings about that throughout. The Tunes recruit him to play basketball. He says, "I'm not a basketball player anymore." LeBron James has this whole family drama thing going on. Not a huge family drama thing, and actually, the kid who plays his son's arc are some of the better parts of the movie. But it's just I wanted not to be again that person, but I wanted it to be more like the other one in that the point wasn't to have to get a dramatic performance out of the basketball player. The point was to have fun with the basketball player and the cartoon characters, and the plot of the first Space Jam for all its flaws, is just about that. It's about having fun with, and also having fun with. The first one also has fun with Muggsy Bogues and Charles Barkley and Patrick Ewing and other basketball players of the time, and that and their scenes in that one did not feel like filler. They were very amusing. They were at times even better than the rest, and this movie also has appearances by other basketball players, but not nearly to that effect. Um, and without saying too much more, because I don't feel like I have too much to say about this movie. The whole one of the cynical things that are the things that I kept hearing from about the cynical reasons the movie exists is to do what Ralph Breaks the Internet does with all of the Disney properties and put all the things into one movie. And I found that distracting and not particularly rewarding. It's fun to see Lola Bunny with the Amazons on Themyscira, and she's trying to prove herself in a new way. And I don't think she was even a Looney Tune before the first Space Jam, so it could have been something amusing about her trying to find a place where she belongs since she was created for that movie, and it could have been somewhat meta. But I don't think it was that. I think it was just let's get all the things together. But it was distracting, like the final, and it didn't really come into play at all until the final scene, the big basketball game. All the characters from Warner Brothers movies come to watch, and so there's the basketball game to watch, which is ostensibly what the movie's about, and all the characters that we've come to know and appreciate over the course of the movie. And then there's in the background, you're trying to find all of your favorite characters, and we found some. But every time I found someone, I thought, oh, did I miss something from the plot? Because I was looking at the background. And I know that maybe that sort of thing is you freeze frame it and you go through it later, but that's also not as much fun because then you're not spotting it. You're just making a list. You're going through and you're making a list. So I was not a fan of this movie, but I had fun. There's a great Speedy Gonzalez sequence. I don't think Speedy Gonzalez is in the first one. In fact, I know pretty much for certain that he's not because I just watched it. But he's in this one, and it's one of the better moments. And again, the kid is good. Don Cheadle is committed. But ultimately, I'm going to say that I really like the first one, not so much the second one. So instead of watching the second one, I mean, watch it if you're curious. But rewatch the first one and maybe give it if you're one of the people who thinks it's overrated, maybe give it another chance and try not to judge it as an older than a 10-year-old. Another thing that I watched yesterday, we finished watching because we'd been away and couldn't access the Disney Plus. We watched the last 4 episodes of Loki, and people are talking about that on the internet, at least for a couple more hours, and so I wanted to weigh in on that just in case it mattered. And it's another thing that where the ones that came before I liked them more. WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier I had more appreciation for than Loki. And it's not necessarily the plot of the series, and it's not necessarily the performances or the Loki character, the fact that this one is about a villain instead of about, well, potentially a future villain, or about 2 heroes and one of them is a past villain. But it was the first time I watched one of these Marvel series, and I thought that would have been better as a movie. I like the episodes of WandaVision being each a different kind of sitcom. I like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I thought there was enough there to unspool it over the course of as many episodes as they had. But Loki, I thought, especially since the last 4 episodes took a grand total of less than 3 hours to watch, and I definitely thought it could have been condensed into a movie, and maybe we get a trilogy of Loki movies. Like, it ends in such a way, as has been stated before, that it's pretty much setting up the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I kind of get the impression that Loki is going to be on this adventure in future seasons, but not connected necessarily to uh, even Thor anymore or any of the other characters in the movies. And so I thought, well, you could have had just a trilogy of Loki movies, and this could have been the first one, and then it would have made perfect sense that it doesn't actually end, really. Um, because again, I thought it was interesting, and I'll get to why. Um, but just a few more issues that I had with it. I've grown accustomed to Loki being very, very funny, and he's just it's not that he's not funny in this. It's just that he's not given much opportunity to be funny. It's very heavy material to place on Loki, and it makes sense early on when he's first in the first episode or so when he's just learning about the situation that he's in, and he actually watches his life unfold as it was supposed to before he became a time variant. But then for the rest, and it's kind of the advertising set me up to be disappointed in this way. It's not him and Owen Wilson being time cops and being funny together, which they were and could have been more. And that's the kind of the show that I was expecting, and I don't know what's in the comics, and I don't know things like this. Is just kind of from the advertising and from the commentary I'd heard about it, and it's not fair necessarily to say the show wasn't what I expected, and therefore, but it wasn't even. So it's not just that it wasn't that; it's that it wasn't better than that, and it wasn't as good as that, and it was, yeah. So I thought that it just should have had a lighter touch, and also it was all very dark and gloomy, which is kind of like saying that the material being dealt with in the story was heavier than it needed to be. It was gloomier than it needed to be, I thought, and I understand sometimes that's gloomy or the dark is the way that you make the special effects not look as cheap as maybe they are, but I'm pretty sure the Marvel special effects are top notch, and so it wasn't. It was Loki, but it wasn't fun to experience, and it wasn't fun to look at. And I understand it was ponderous, and I liked the ponderousness because I won't say what happens at the end, but I will say what I thought was going to happen at the end. And this is again, I thought this because I was free to think this, not having read the source material. I thought that it was a search for God, or the Marvel equivalent of God, and that is no search for God is ever interesting to me, and so that might have again weighed on my enjoyment of it throughout. But actually, when the final reveal came, that actually leavened my enjoyment of it throughout, and maybe I'll watch it again and see if like the whole 6 episodes again and see if I appreciate it better knowing what's coming. But it wasn't what I expected. It was much more interesting than what I expected. And again, I won't say what it is, and it is the malevolent supernatural force I live with. Compared it to the Matrix a little bit, and the third movie of the Matrix, and she's right. But I also don't hate those movies as much as other people do. So, and it made me curious to see what happens next. So I guess it was rather like many a first Marvel movie introducing one of the main superheroes, which have, I guess, historically tended to be not very good, but then the sequels are great, or the third ones are great. So that's my take on Loki, and I think all the actors did a great job. It's just that I didn't necessarily appreciate how they were used by the directors, the writers, the producers, etc. And I was going to do this yesterday, but we didn't watch the Space Jam stuff yesterday. But yesterday's when we finished up Loki, and so today, since we also watched Bill and Ted Face the Music, I just want to say a little bit about that because it's not new this week, but it's newly available, or fairly newly available, to stream for free. And so I finally streamed it. And I'm no expert on their incredible journey or their bogus journey, and yet it's kind of like Bad Boys 3, where I've seen the movies, the previous movies, but they're not ingrained in me like say Men in Black and Men in Black 2. Um, but I really, really loved uh, Bad Boys 3, possibly more than Bad Boys 1 and 2. Again, I don't know because I just haven't, I don't have the relationship with those movies that I do with other series. But with Bill and Ted, I probably like this movie better than the others. And it could be as simple as this is the movie made when I am consuming movies, and therefore with the current moviegoer, which is to say me, although I didn't go anywhere, watched it in the living room. But you know, someone like me, the person who's watching movies today, uh, in mind. And it was another one where, kind of throughout, it seemed to be aiming higher than it should have been, but then the ending kind of justified that, and in a better way than the ending of the Loki series. Um, and it was celebratory, and um, it was meaningful to me at least. Um, and it's nice to see. I know that, you know, on the one hand, with the Marvel stuff, it seems like great actors are getting, like, all they're going to be doing is playing their Marvel character for at least a few decades of their careers at this point, and that's going to be the backbone of their careers, and hopefully they get to do other things. But on the flip side of that, it's been consistently cool, I should say, for me to see someone like people like Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters return to roles from their youth as uh, older, middle-aged people, and look at the stories, because, you know, stories don't end, movies do. And I don't want to see this go on indefinitely with anybody, but I liked Terminator Dark Fate. I think I liked that most recent Halloween movie. I liked the Bad Boys 3. If Will Smith did another Men in Black, or even if Will Smith did another Wild Wild West, I'm sure that I would like those. And you know, on and on. Um, but I guess part of the liking it is the break in between, like and the not expecting it. But I think that Jim Carrey has been announced to do like they're developing a new Ace Ventura, which is an idea that I had, well, an idea that I and probably a lot of people had before it was announced. But I always enjoy when I have an idea for something before it's announced. Um, but so yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the daughter characters, also Bill and Ted in their way, and the historical figures. It was fun. So those are my thoughts on those three things, and I'm going to keep this under 20 minutes. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff to watch, and this maybe was somewhat helpful in helping you choose what to watch. I don't know, but I liked saying it out loud and recording it for even just my own memory. Have a good night, a good week. Well, yeah, still a good weekend.